Let's solve this quadratic equation by completing the square. This is a good candidate for completing the square because b is even and a is 1, which makes it really easy. So the first step is I'm going to separate this out a little bit. So notice I wrote the exact same equation, but now what I'm going to do, and I like to use boxes, is I'm going to add the same thing to both sides of the equation. I'm keeping the equation balanced, and that same thing that I'm adding is half of b, which is -5, squared, which is positive 25. So I'm adding positive 25 to both sides of the equation. Now some people have a problem with this because they think, well, how can I just do that? Well, can't I change 1/2 into 3/6? Yeah, I just multiplied the top and bottom by the same thing. Well, I'm keeping balance. I'm adding the same thing to both sides of my equation. There's no problem with that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to group this, and I'm going to move this over to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 22. 25 minus 22 is 3. When I group this, you'll see what happens. What does this factor into now? X minus 5 squared. That's why it's called completing the square, because I turned this into a perfect square trinomial, and now look at the beauty of this. Up here I had an x squared term and an x term. Now I only have one x, which means I can get the x by itself. How do I get the x by itself? How do I get rid of the squared? Take the square root of both sides. How do I get rid of the minus 5? Add 5 to both sides. There's your answers. That's completing the square. Now, let's do the same problem, but let's do it with the quadratic formula, and let's see that you're going to get the same answer. What was the answer before? I already forget what it was, but you're going to see it's the same thing. If I complete the square, I'm going all the way back. Alright, let's do it with the quadratic formula instead. QF, I think it was plus or minus the square root of 3, 5 plus or minus the square root of 3, right?
Yeah.
That was the answer. So watch this. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 100, minus 4a, which is 1, c, which is 22, all over 2a. Alright, let's simplify this. That's 10 plus or minus the square root of 100 minus 88 all over 2, which equals 10 plus or minus the square root of 12 all over 2. 12 is 10 plus or minus square root of 4 is 2, and so there's 3 left there, 2. What does 2 divide into each one of them? What are you going to get? That same answer. Some people might say, oh yeah, that was so much easier, Mr. Wright, I'd rather do that. Fine, do that. But completing the square is something you're going to need to know how to do eventually, so don't be afraid of it because it's not hard. And it's easy when the leading coefficient is 1 and the linear coefficient b is even. It's really easy when those are the case.